Julie in Milwaukee, thank you for your question. You want to know if the dogs will communicate with each other like wolves in a sort of vocally. And the answer is yes, they do. They chatter, and they make a sort of almost bird-like chattering noise. And they also bark. They make a sort of hooting, barking noise when they're threatened. And they don't howl like wolves, but they make a sort of hoot when they're on the hunt and they want to communicate with the other members of the pack if they've been separated. And like I say, the dogs will now go down. They won't move after dark because their eyesight is not wonderful after dark. They'll find a comfortable place to lie. Jimmerlin in Oklahoma, thank you for your question. I'm just trying to understand if I'm getting you correctly here. You want to know if the diet is the same between dogs and lions, and therefore, why do they have similar smells, or why don't they have similar smells? The diet is very similar, except that the dogs will probably consume more of a carcass than the lions will. The lions tend to stick to the meaty parts and the bones, but the dogs will, and some skin, but the dogs will, if they catch a steenbok, they will devour just about every single piece of it. That's not to say the lions won't. In terms of smell, their dung does smell different, but I don't know why that is. It's probably got to do with the digestive bacteria and that sort of thing. But the smell of the coat is definitely very different. I couldn't tell you why, I'm afraid. Glorious sunset, that. It's always just slightly clearer and brighter when the air is as crisply cold as this. So for us, it's quite chilly now. For North America, it's balmy. You can hear the drongos calling behind us. Make that call in the late evening. So while Phil sort of recovers from the major injuries I've given to his back, we're going to cross over to Byron and see what he's found, and we'll catch up with you a bit later.
Hello everyone, welcome back. How amazing was that WildDog sighting? It's incredible. I'm so happy you all got to see that. It's definitely one of the most fascinating predators we get in this area, and most exciting. The way they can just cover huge distances in such a short period of time, and as you saw, it's not easy to stay with them. But I'm glad you got to see them and spend some time with James, and I'm sure he got through most of your questions regarding the WildDog and how they move around and what they get up to. We are on our way towards the hyena den, which we were at this morning. We were just curious because there was an adult there. We're not sure if the cubs are around, but there was an adult there this morning. So we'd like to go and double check, make sure there isn't any activity around there. We're still not entirely sure where that leopard moved off to this morning. So we're going to go have a look around that area and just see if we have any luck. We've had such an amazing sunset this evening. Really beautiful colors. Cecilia. Cecilia's just asked quite an interesting question. She's asked me what one of my scariest moments in the bush has been. I think off the top of my head, the first answer would definitely be meeting James. He's quite an intimidating individual. No, I'm just kidding. Cecilia, fortunately, I haven't had many hair-raising experiences. I've been fortunate enough to view a lot of animals, and I've been lucky with their behavior, and I've judged it fairly correctly on most times. But on one occasion, I was by myself walking through the bush. I was tracking something, and I'd been charged by an elephant. Now that for me, and I mentioned this morning, elephants are one of my favorite animals. But that was definitely a hair-raising experience, and it was something that's definitely stuck with me. And I was definitely nervous and quite scared at the time. But in my mind, and I'm not one to overthink things too much, but I do believe that the elephant could have hurt me if he wanted to. I don't think he did want to, and he actually stopped the charge. He must have been about 5 meters from me, which is incredibly close for a 5 to 6 ton bull elephant. And he stopped. There was a lot of dust, bit of trumpeting, and he turned and he moved off. And as he moved off, I then quickly made my way out of the area and away from him. But just one charge. I think he had been irritated previously in the day, and that's perhaps what triggered it. And we literally bumped into each other. It wasn't any instigating or anything like that, but that was quite a scary experience. But again, I always believe that animals are not out there to hurt us. We purely here to view them in their natural habitat and try and watch how they behave and act. And if we give them the space and the courtesy, which I think they all deserve, they generally leave us alone. And I think that's one of the best ways of avoiding any situation. Temperature has dropped quite a bit this evening on our sunset safari. As the sun has dropped, the temperature has gone down with it, and both myself and Andrew have got our jackets on already. It's not too bad. It was definitely much colder this morning. Wonderful time of the day. There's a lot of birds giving their final calls before they head off to sleep. So there's a lot of activity, a lot of movement. Just kind of, if you glance through the bush, you'll see the few birds flying off. You hear francolins calling. There's always something going on. Just noticed what a beautiful view we have from this particular point. We're not far from that hyena den, but it's always wonderful to stop and just take in some of the natural landscape and the views which we are fortunate to have in this area. And I mean, as far as you can see, they're just trees, and it's incredible. There's a saying that one of my friends used to say, which stuck with me quite a bit. And if you look out there, we don't really know what's going on. And around us, at the moment, there's nothing going on. But at the same time, everything is going on. Everything is happening because we don't know what's going on out there. We had wild dogs run through the property very quickly. We had some zebra drinking a bit earlier. We had buffalo, warthog, and that's just what we saw. But we don't know what's going on in these thicker areas and beyond the horizon, which I find so fascinating. And the other really incredible thing, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, is we are in the middle of Africa, in the greater Kruger National Park, and yet we are able to bring you this live. Everything we're seeing, you are seeing as we see it, and it's just such an amazing experience. For those of you who haven't been on this morning or only joined us now, my name's Byron. I've arrived today just doing my first and second drive, and it's been such a great experience, and again just appreciating being back here. We've been very lucky this morning with the leopard, but hopefully our luck continues. James was lucky this afternoon with the wild dog, and we're heading towards a hyena den now just to see if there's any activity around there, and if there are potential cubs around. It's often a nice time of the day, just as it's starting to get dark, the sun set. Excuse me. The sun is set, and it's a nice time to have a look. Look at this. We've just seen the warthog just run out the burrow. These were warthog that we saw here this morning. While this hyena was lying 30 meters from the hole, these warthog had returned to this burrow or this den, and they were down the hole. So this just kind of makes me think and realize that there's possibly no cubs in this den at the moment. I think those hyenas have moved off with the cubs, and that adult that we saw here today was probably just resting in this area, probably knows the den site quite well, and that's possibly why it was here, because on this morning when we got here, the adult female head was out, and the adult female warthog, her head was out. The hyena was lying down, and we sat here for a short while, but the warthog were waking up, getting ready to head out, and she came out, and the three young piglets followed her, and they ran off. Fortunately for them, they ran away from the den in that direction, in a northerly direction, and then where the hyena was laying down, just beyond, that's where the leopard popped up this morning. So it would have been interesting if the piglets and the mother ran towards the leopard, because leopard do enjoy hunting warthog, and especially a piglet running past at the back of the group. And my understanding is Tingana, the leopard, which we saw this morning, and leopards can be creatures of habit at times. They're not, again, we can't always guarantee their behavior, but occasionally they pick up behavior which forms a pattern. Now, Tingana apparently likes to sit outside warthog burrows and aardvark burrows, possibly waiting for a warthog or an aardvark to run out, and I've seen other leopard do that before. They can pick up on the scent of the animals inside the burrow, so they'll sit. They're incredibly patient animals, and what they'll do is they'll sit down and wait for any potential prey to come out or return back to the burrow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep very quiet now. It looks like the warthog are returning back to the burrow. So let's just sit quietly a little bit and have a look to see if they go back down. can just see the mother in front, leading the piglets back. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to just move a little bit further back, just to give the warthog a little bit more space. Perhaps she'll feel comfortable. I'm going to start the vehicle. She may move off a little bit, but I do think she's going to come back. So just let me give her a little bit more space. Back off slowly. Oh, hang on a second. She's coming closer. Okay, let's rather wait. I don't want to disturb her. How wonderful is this? Female's very wary, just watching us. Wants to make sure we're no threat. Yeah, she's moved off a little bit. I'm going to give them a little bit more space quickly. Let me just move the vehicle. Given them quite a bit of space, and let's wait here a second and see if they relax a bit more. If not, I'll possibly just move off so that they can head back down into the burrow. But she was fairly relaxed. She just wanted to make sure we weren't a threat. I'm certain they are going to head back to the burrow shortly. I understand a lot of you are hoping that we've got the same luck we had this morning and a leopard pops out, possibly tries to catch one of these warthog. That would be very lucky, and but you never know what's going to happen. Here we go, slowly coming back. Good evening and hello to Halal. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Halal's question was, she would like to know how heavy can warthog get. Now, some of the big boars, the big males, can get up to between 80 and 110 kilograms. A really big boar, and that would be very big, is about 100, maybe 110 kilograms. Or, some of those weights are records. If you read most books, they'll give a range for the weight of a big male or big female, but big warthog can get up to around that weight of 180, 100 or 100 kilograms. So that's roughly around 200 pounds, somewhere around there, roughly, maybe a bit more, 220, 230 pounds, which is a huge animal. And that's why even leopard and lions think twice before they hunt some of these big warthog, because they're armed with incredibly sharp tusks and they're very quick, very powerful, especially one that size. You've got to be very careful if you're hunting them. They're slowly heading back. Oh, look at that. Fantastic. There we go. And have a look, if you watch them going down, you may see them reversing in. Yeah, have a look at that. And now that is typical warthog behavior for entering a burrow. They go in backwards. The reason for that is if they feel threatened or there's danger that comes into the front or the entrance of the burrow, they can always use their tusks to defend themselves, and they can sprint out of the hole and get away very quickly. So have a look at that. There we go. On their knees and back into the hole. How beautiful is that? Look at that, beautiful, going down into the burrow. This is really very, very special, and I'm so glad we're getting to view them like this. We just received a question from Ashley on Twitter. The gestation period of a warthog. It's about 170 days, Ashley. So that's the general gestation period of a warthog. And then some of you may be thinking that there are only 2 piglets at the moment. This morning they ran out very quickly, and I said there's possibly 2 or 3 piglets. I didn't actually see properly that if there were 3 or if there were 2, so I may have got it wrong this morning by saying 2 or 3, but it's just the 2 that are with her, and I think it was just the 2 that were here earlier. They did just run out very quickly, and I was scanning the area to see if something else had chased them, just to make sure, but and My counting is occasionally incorrect. I apologize, but it's just the female with the 2 piglets at the moment. But this is a fascinating sighting. I don't think I've ever seen warthog return to a burrow in the evenings to go down. You can see she's still a little wary, but she's definitely relaxed a lot more. And you see those sharp tusks at the entrance, just in case anything comes up, making sure there's no danger, and then she'll probably head down. We've received a question on Twitter from Happy Cub. Good evening. Just at what age do the litter or the piglets leave the adult? It's an interesting question. You know, often what happens with warthog is the family tend to stay together. Males, when they reach maturity, quite a few years later, will possibly move off and go look for other females and then become independent. But a lot of the piglets and the females tend to stay within the family. And I've got a question for all the viewers. Does anyone know what a family or a group of warthog are known as? Always these collective nouns are fascinating, and the warthog is quite an interesting one. Good evening, Kari. Kari is 15 years old, all the way from Costa Rica, and she's just sent through an interesting question, asking me, how would a warthog react if we were on foot and walking and bumped into a warthog? And that's a very interesting question. Firstly, let me talk about what would happen if you had to walk in front of that hole with that female, or that burrow with that female inside. And Kari, it would generally not be a very pleasant experience. What happens is, because they reverse or move backwards down into the burrow, if you had to walk, there we go, there she goes down. If you had to walk in front of that burrow and surprise them or threaten them in any way, those warthog would come running out very quickly, and those tusks could do some serious damage, scraping your leg badly and occasionally breaking a leg if you're not careful. So that would not be advised. And one of the golden rules when you're walking in the bush or in a wilderness area is you never walk in front of a warthog burrow or an aardvark burrow, in case there are warthog or animals inside, and if they feel threatened, they will come shooting out, and that can cause some damage. If you were walking through the bush, just on a bushwalk, and you came across some warthog, they would probably just move away, Kari. They won't stick around. They are quite skittish and nervous. You can see this female is still just a little bit wary and wants to make sure it's safe before she goes to sleep. But they would most likely run away from you. They are not very confrontational animals. But again, if you cause them to feel threatened, then they would run and charge you. So Sherry on Twitter and Elaine from Massachusetts answered my question, what a group or family of warthog are known as, and they've got it right. It is a sounder of warthog, similar to what a group of pigs is called. So That's well done to both of you getting your answers in first and the correct answers. So those of you who didn't know, it is a sounder of warthog. What a fantastic sighting. It really was incredible. Lovely to see these warthog go down into the burrow. Christine from North Carolina just sent through a question asking me how deep a warthog burrow or a hyena den can be. It varies so much, Christine. It would be anywhere from a meter to 2 or 3 meters deep. Occasionally what could happen is these old termite mounds form such a wonderful home for these animals because they're easier to burrow into. There's a lot more or the ground is a lot looser inside, probably some open cavities, so they can get quite deep, and occasionally burrows may go all the way through a termite mound and have a number of entrances. This one, however, I think has definitely just got the one entrance because the warthog have gone in, so she feels safe that nothing would come from the other side. So this entrance or this burrow is probably, I would say, between a meter and a half, pushing it 2 meters, because there have been hyena and that in there. So I would say that's probably how deep it can go. And they also do maintenance on these burrows. They will clean it out a little bit more, possibly making it a little bit deeper, trying to keep it clean. Just remember, there are a lot of fleas and that which occur in these burrows once all these animals use them as homes. So that is also something to consider. This was really a special sighting and great to see. It just shows how patience pays off in the bush, and always works and works out for the better, just to wait and see what happens, and we get to see these animals in their natural habitat acting the way they would if we weren't here. I think what we're going to do is, why don't we see what James is up to. He's been driving around for a while, perhaps he has found something, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everybody, to Giga. I've strapped Phil's body back together, which is quite pleasant. So as you can see, he's found us a spectacular view out west again over the mountains and the great setting African sun. I have been trying to take a photograph with my little camera, failing so far. I'm not skilled in those arts like Brent and Scott are, but I'm learning. We've had the most spectacular day, and the night drive has just sort of commenced, so we've got a little bit of time left, and we're going to carry on trying to find little bits and pieces that might be out at night, civets perhaps, or genets, or chameleons. The chameleons tend to come out in the winter, which is quite nice, and perhaps a bush baby or two. Then, of course, there's always the hope of seeing a leopard, which is our favorite thing to see at night. It's certainly one of my favorite animals. I'm just judging. Somebody asked me on my first drive what my favorite animal was, and I wasn't really able to answer. But the speed at which my heart was beating during that wild dog chase is starting to make me think that I perhaps do have a slight leaning towards Lycaon pictus, the African painted wolf, or the wild dog. So I still feel sort of warm and fuzzy inside after that incredible sighting. Phil doesn't, of course, because he's deeply injured, but that's just how it goes. And we're going to carry on now, try and spotlight a few nighttime animals and see what we can see. I'm going to give up on my photography for now. There's no need for you to experience my incompetence on the celluloid. Right, here we go. Oh, and I wanted to say, Chris on Twitter, you asked about dog smell and whether it was an evolutionary disadvantage, and it got me thinking. Charlie, sorry, not Chris, Charlie. You got me thinking about it because I wasn't entirely satisfied with the answer I gave you. And I did a little bit of reading quickly, and although the book didn't say this exactly, what it did say is that they use their noses quite a lot to follow each other when they're hunting. And I suspect that's one of the reasons that they still have that smell. They move huge distances while they're hunting, and they spread out quite far from each other. And I think that smell that they have, although it might alert prey to them, probably plays a major role in helping them to follow each other, and outweighs the disadvantage of having the prey smell them. So great question, and thanks for stimulating me mind. Right, spotlight is on. Let's see what we can see. I must tell you the temperature has dropped substantially. I'm wearing shorts, and not even the thick pelt of hair upon my legs is keeping them warm. So tomorrow morning I'm going to have to find some form of a long pant or blanket. I've just had a dreadfully tragic update from the inimitable Nikki Austin, who says it's going to be 4 degrees tomorrow morning. In Fahrenheit, that is not much above 40. So I'm going to have to find some form of blanket, otherwise my legs will fall off. Not sure which of Brent or Scott are going to experience the Baltic conditions tomorrow morning with me. Often on windy nights, well, it's not windy, but there's certainly a bit of a cool breeze blowing through here at the moment. And what happens is that animals will go into thick bush. They'll congregate if they happen to be communal. If they're leopards, which are on their own, I feel quite sorry for them. But they'll tend to stick to the thicker bush and out of the wind. So they can't just put on an extra layer of clothing should the need arise. They do get thicker coats, of course, much like your dog does or a horse does, but, you know, that sort of remains for the whole of the winter, and it doesn't grow in a day. Said I am checking in all the marula trees to see if there isn't a carcass hanging from a bough with a leopard resting therein. guaranteed of with the weather like it is a very clear and starry night. So we might have to light a fire outside and sit by it with a warming scotch. I believe Byron showed you a warthog going backwards into his burrow, which I think I've seen once or twice before. But what a wonderful thing to have seen. And especially as they seem to have evicted the hyenas from their home. I think it's rather amusing. Those warthog we saw the other morning when I was with Scott on camera, and they were walking towards the den site, and we said to each other, you know, we wondered if they weren't going to walk into some form of a trap where the hyenas might take one of those little piglets. But it would seem the pugnacious nature of the pigs has pushed off the very large and sort of secondary predator of the area, which is quite impressive. And they found a new home. And it's a home much like the wild dogs will be looking for at the moment. Drive a fairly bumpy little road now called Ingwer Alley, which means Leopard Alley. I've yet to see a leopard on Ingwer Alley, so I'm not convinced that the name is not a misnomer of some sort. We'll try it anyway. Brent swears blind that he's seen hundreds of leopards on it. We're now on Ingwer Alley. May the herds of Ingwer hair out of the bush in front of us. Oh, there's some eyes there in the bush. I think we've got a bush baby. Well, there's an eye there in front. There we go. It's like a bush baby on the tree. There, if we get to, yeah, it's definitely there. Can you see it there? Beautiful. Let's see if we can't get a decent view of him. It. There we go. Jumping to the top now, Phil. Let's get a bit closer. There he's jumped across there. Just going to turn off here and see if we can't see him. He jumped from this knobthorn tree across to that terminalia, across to there. Psst, 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 psst. No. He's quite distantly related to us, although I do have some friends who are probably more closely related to them than they'd like to admit. And their little eyes apparently don't move. They were not little eyes, they've got huge eyes. And apparently they don't move in the eye socket because they're so big. And so for the bush baby to look in either direction, it must turn its head. Hope to find, coming to the end of Ingwe Alley, which has proved to be as unproductive as usual. But it does help one's driving skills to drive on a road like this with one hand on the wheel and one on the spotlight. Poor old Phil's back's taking another hammering. We'll have to pour him a large scotch when we get home too. No, he says a beer rather. I'll give him a beer. The snifter of his choice. Seems to have disappeared. So, wherever you might find yourselves, be it in North America, where the day I'm sure is progressing, or in Northern Europe, where you're in a similar time to us, or in Australia, where you might even be in the early morning, early hours of tomorrow. It's been wonderful having you with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Phil and I had an incredible time with those wild dogs. That's Phil's first wild dog sighting here. So apart from the injuries he sustained, it was fantastic for him. And certainly for me, I've decided that they probably are my favorite animal. Here we are. Update on the antelope poll. Right, so we're going to, just in the last few minutes, we're going to read out the results of the antelope poll, starting with I seem to have lost community. Poor old Klipspringer coming in at last place. It's a little antelope that jumps around on the rocks. And then we have Sable, then Impala. Not sure why Sable did so badly. Steinbock or Steenbock next. And then Nyala female. It's a bit sexist, but never mind. Springbok. Coming in a tie with the Gerenuk, which I think is a bit unfair on the Springbok, our national animal. Right, then Tuk in 5th place, Kudu in 4th place. Sorry, there's just furious counting going on. Nyala male in 4th place. What are you in 5th? What was the next one? Waterbuck in 3rd place. Eland 2nd. And number 1. And then a great drum roll. In 1st position we have the gemsbok or oryx. So just before I leave you, I just want to have a quick listen to the last dying embers of the day. And thank you again for joining us. It's been great fun having you along. We had an incredible time with those dogs. And we will see you tomorrow. I'm going to hand you over to Byron, who's had a wonderful time too. And I must thank you all for making him feel so welcome. He's a good friend of mine. And so I'd have been very upset if you'd been nasty to him. So we're going to cross over to him, and he will say the goodbyes from us. So from Phil and I know that apparently I'm the scariest thing he's ever seen in the bush. It makes me feel quite good inside, I must say. So from Phil and I, thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the freezing morning. Have a great evening, afternoon, morning, or whatever it is you're doing. Thanks.
Right, everyone, well, we're coming to an end of a beautiful sunset drive. A lot of excitement again with the wild dogs, with James, spending time with the warthog. I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for all the support today. It was wonderful meeting you all and being able to answer some of your questions and experience this wonderful, wonderful area with you. It was very exciting for me. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. And always great to work with old friends again, Brent and Scott and James, and meet new friends, Phil and Andrew helping out on the cameras. And just a quick thank you again to Nikki and Eugene in the FC. Great help, and it was wonderful having them guide me along the way. And just to all the viewers again, thank you for all the help and the questions and the interaction. Please don't forget to feedback a lot of what you thought of the drives to the FC, and let us know what you think. This is again all about you and what you want and what you enjoy. So please let us know. It always makes it a lot easier for us to iron out a few things and find out what you want. Again, just a thank you. I am off tomorrow morning early. I've got to head back to the Kalahari, in fact, for a few days, taking some guests around there. So a very different type of safari experience. And then hopefully I will be back with you very soon. It'll be wonderful to join you again on Safari Live and take a few game drives with you. And we'll see. It's a beautiful evening tonight. I actually just heard some hyena calling in the distance. Probably a little too soft for you to hear back home. Thank you again, and we hope you enjoyed your day with us, and enjoy the rest of the week, or what's left of the weekend, with James and Scott and Brent, and hope to see you soon. Thank you again, everyone. Bye-bye.